What is up? This is Chase, and welcome back to the Wellness Center podcast. I am so incredibly honored that you are here listening to my show today. If you're not already a part of our tribe and our family, please make sure to like and subscribe on whatever platform you choose to listen to this on, just so you can get updated on all of the wonderful things and all of the wonderful lessons that my guests are teaching on a day-to-day basis. Guys, I cannot even begin to describe how excited I am for my guest today. She is such a rock star in the world of mental health and resilience. She is, the energy that I feel even through the web meeting today is profound. So I know she's going to bless the lives of every single person who chooses to listen to this. So I invite you to listen to it. I invite you to listen to it all the way through. And as you're listening to it, I also invite you to think of one or two people that you know that could be blessed from the lessons my guest is going to teach you today. Please share it with them so they can be blessed with all of the wonderful lessons that this rock star of a lady is going to share with you. So guys, without further ado, I want to introduce my guest today. So she is a Colorado native. She has 4 boys and 5 beautiful grandchildren. She's a registered nurse with 17 years of experience. She's a certified empowerment mindset coach. She is the founder of a faith-based 501c3 nonprofit organization called Awaken Your Lion Spirit. If that doesn't get the energy in you, I don't know what it will, but it's all about supporting women with affordable housing opportunities and mindset. She's passionate about recovery and personal development. She enjoys being in nature and near bodies of water. She loves reading and traveling to learn more about the world that surrounds her. And most importantly, she is a warrior daughter of God. So without further ado, I'm going to butcher her last name, but we're going to go for it. It's Terry DeAragon. Terry, how are you doing?
Very good.
Good.
Thank
Good.
you, Chase. I'm so honored to be here.
Yeah.
So honored.
Yeah, Terry, and thank you for coming on the show today. It truly is a blessing to me and all of the listeners that you were willing to take some time out of your busy schedule to come here and join us today. So, Terry, will you just go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself? Give us some of those cookie cutter answers as to who you are.
Yeah, so as you said, I'm a Colorado native. Lived here my whole life. It was a little farm town as I was growing up, and now it's just exploded. But love it here. I love mountains, love lakes. I love traveling. Was blessed to be able to travel for a year and a half and explore some other places. And it just sparked this. There's so much out there to see in the world. Why do I have to be stuck in one place? And the other thing it's drawn out is just seeing my own backyard, living here in beautiful Colorado where people travel from all over the world to come and see. And I didn't go see that very often. So I'm beginning to do that as well. I have 4 amazing boys who continue to teach me and make me be a better person every single day. And they inspire me probably more than they realize that they do. And the greatest gift is my boys, but then my grandchildren. So I think as a mom, and being a young mom, I was a mom at 18 years old. I learned some lessons through that, and I feels like such an amazing do-over with my grandkids. And I had 4 boys, so I've been blessed with 3 little beautiful granddaughters and 2 grandsons. So it's amazing. They're my why in my life. So I'm just so grateful for them. Yeah, and I've been a nurse for 17 years and absolutely love it. That was a prayer from God of what I was going to do with my life after having 4 boys. And it was nursing, never something I wanted to do. But, fast forward to now, it's all come together, and really love the way I've been able to, through my own journey, see the impacts of mental health and our physical health as well.
Wow, that is such an awesome story. So you say you grew up on a farm in Colorado. Did you grow up on a farm specifically?
No, just it was just a little farm town. So
Oh,
this so
gotcha.
this was not a big city ever. So there was just really not a whole lot here. I used to think I lived in a big city until I actually visited big cities. But the growth here in the last 10, 15 years has just been insane. So it's not the little farm town that it once was.
I totally understand that. I grew up in a little town of about they say the population was about 4,000, but half of those people were only part-time. So I get that small town feeling that you're talking about. And yeah, I get that. And that's awesome. Wow, nurse, a young 18 to start starting as a mother, that is a young age to be a mom. I think
With
back to when
twins
with
too,
twins.
twin
Oh,
boys.
what a way to start. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. I remember being 18. I was not ready to be I wasn't a dad until I was 22, but still, I think about, oh wow, you were resilient. Right off the bat, you're resilient.
Well, I will tell you, Chase, in that actually probably saved me from a life that I was otherwise was not going to be very beneficial for me, was
Okay.
my kids. The minute I had them, it changed everything.
Yeah.
My focus was being a good mother, and
Mhm.
I wanted to give them everything that I had been given as a child. And
Right.
yeah, so they actually helped save my life.
That's amazing. And then that's amazing. And I love that you talk about how you kind of have a second do-over with the grandkids. My parents told me, they're like, we suffered through you so we could have grandkids. You know, our reward for raising you, your sorry butt, is your kids.
Yes.
That's
And you know
amazing.
what's really funny that you say that is that I was so blessed with my four boys that
Uh-huh.
there's so many things in my own journey that I felt they suffered with me
Hmm.
and my own mental health issues. So
Hmm.
I just feel so incredibly blessed to have just a complete do-over as a mother and as a grandma and just everything, all that entails right now in this season of my life.
Yeah, I can see that passion and that gratitude that you have for this time in your life. And that's amazing. So Terry, I want to get right into some of these questions. I can tell
Yeah.
you're ready for it. So I want you to take us back to a young Terry. When were some of the first times you noticed that you struggled with mental health?
Wow. So when I first began to struggle with mental health, I think I was struggling with mental health all through my teenage years
Hmm.
and being a young mom, but I didn't realize what it was, couldn't put a name to it. And then it was actually in my first semester of nursing school that I actually had my first panic attack. And
Hmm.
I thought I was having a heart attack and drove myself to the emergency room. And I was in my early 30s at that time and too young to be having a heart attack. There were no evidence that I was having one, but I was diagnosed with a panic attack. And from there, it just continued this ongoing depression and anxiety for probably the next few decades of my life.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, let's dive in. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that. Let's kind of pick this apart and take a look at it. So, high school, you say you didn't know what it was, but what did that look like back in high school for you?
So I will just go back to where I have now going through my own journey have realized where a lot of this began.
Yeah.
At a very young age, I watched my parents struggle in their marriage.
Hmm.
And this started in probably second or third grade.
Gotcha.
Um, and went all the way through until they finally divorced, I was in sixth, going into seventh grade, so in middle school at that time.
Hmm.
And after that, got into middle school and then into high school, and not even high school. It was actually middle school, going into my ninth grade year, and just really began to take a path that was not serving me,
Hmm.
and finding comfort and things in the world and in not and within people that were not really great for my life.
Yeah.
And but I felt a sense of belonging there. And that was, at that early age, I began drinking and doing some things like that, and
Hmm.
didn't realize that this was a way of coping
Right.
for many other things that just continued to evolve. And then, as I say, with my nursing background, years later, decades later, it was coming out into these panic attacks and anxiety and depression that were really affecting me physically.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. I'm so sorry that happened. And I know a lot of viewers can empathize, because I can empathize with you. The connection to people that, the habits that were practiced there were kind of harmful, the drinking and the partying and and all of those types of things, right? You feel like in those moments, especially like in a high school time, middle school and high school, it's like, man, these are my people, or these are my group. They know me, they accept me. And looking back, right? Because everything's better in hindsight. That everyone was just in pain and they were just trying to survive.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So
I have to put a little plug in there though, because
yeah.
it's as we're talking about this is where part of my passion with my nonprofit came.
Okay.
Um, when I was 21, I
Mhm.
actually was spent a night in jail after getting a DUI. I wrecked my car, hit a parked boat and trailer. And when I say my boys, I had to wake up to take them to school for the next year because I lost my license
Mhm.
after spending a night in jail, and uh, had to just. I felt so much guilt and shame because I had to walk them to the bus stop in the cold, in the snow in Colorado,
Mhm.
and had so much self blame for that. So as we go on here, one of my reasons why I have such passion for women, um, and seeing where they are, but also the guilt and shame that comes with some of those decisions that we make at such an early age that
Yeah,
end up
it's
turning out those mental
yeah.
health we deal with.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk about it, It's already an amazing conversation. Thank you for your vulnerability and all of it. I really appreciate it. Um, so you start having these panic attacks. You say you go through this depression. What did that all kind of look like on a day-to-day basis for you?
Well, I couldn't sleep. I had severe insomnia.
Mhm.
I was a very outgoing person, but I began to notice how being around people was not, I wasn't finding joy in it anymore.
Yeah.
Um, so I was being a little bit more inclusive.
Mhm.
Um, I didn't know that, but I had a tremendous amount of walls up around me
Mhm.
as protection.
Mhm.
Um, and lots of medication. So I was on a plethora of anti-anxiety medications
Mhm.
and antidepressants, went through multiple different ones because they didn't work. And really just taking another medication after another medication to treat the side effects from the medications that I was taking. So
Yeah.
at a very young age, taking, you know, 8 pills a day was there was something wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely there was. And how old were you when you got to this point that you were taking these 8 medications a day?
I actually was in my middle, my early 20s when I started doing that.
Okay.
Um, and then, the pain that that this was causing my children, of course,
Yeah.
and really strained relationships throughout my family,
Mhm.
with my sisters, my father, my mom.
Mhm.
So, and my poor children got the blunt of that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and this just went on for many, many years.
I'm so sorry to hear that. So I think this is a perfect segue into our next question. So you go through these trials and these struggles and these walls are up and everything is happening. And then I'm assuming you get to this point where you're just like, enough.
Yeah.
And you have to go through this heroine's journey. Um, And so, for those listening, the heroine's journey or the hero's journey is a pivotal moment or extreme trial that someone has to face where they ultimately take a look at some of the deepest, worst parts of themselves, their rock bottom, and they climb out of it. So, Terry, I want you to describe for us or share with us the heroine's journey you had to undertake.
Yeah. So it had happened, probably started in 2013.
Okay.
And I just was feeling this internal battle
Hmm.
within myself. And of course, it was bleeding on to everybody around me,
Right.
coworkers, everything I did. And I just became so incredibly desperate for change.
Hmm.
And so I just began, my mom was amazing because when things were tough in her life and we went through the divorce with her and my father, she always showed me pray. And this is, to pray to God and ask him to help me through trialing times. So that was all I knew to do.
Hmm.
Um, and so I begged, I pleaded out, and in 2015, I had an unexplainable experience with the Holy Spirit here in
Hmm.
my living room. And changed my life forever. I just, looking back, I've never been the same again. And so that Sunday, I decided that I was going to go to church. It was through a message a friend had told me to watch online with a local church here, and I go to Red Rocks Church here in Colorado. And I went that next Sunday, and I've not stopped going. And this continuing relationship continued to evolve. Sorry, this is where it's just, but it's a good cry.
Good.
Um,
No. Yeah.
and in
Please.
2018, I began to start some therapy
Mhm.
for myself. And then in my rock bottom was in 2019. Simultaneously, I started to realize there were some things within me. And I joined a 12-step Christ recovery group.
Mhm.
And then in that same, just a couple months later, my divorce or my separation happened. So I'd been in a relationship for 26 years, married 22 of those. And
Mhm.
2 days after our wedding anniversary, we separated. And that was my rock bottom. I thought that things were going to get better. We would separate for a while and we would end up back together. And that is not what happened. By the summer of 2020, I had to make the decision to file for a divorce. And so that was my rock bottom.
Yeah. I can tell that this is raw. Terry, thank you for trusting me and our listeners to hold this space for you to share your story. What happened after you realized you hit rock bottom?
Well, my habit way of dealing with things was to react it was so interesting how from 2015 up until 2019, when this happened, how God was mending my heart and I didn't realize it.
Mhm.
And so many ways that I used to react and have to prove myself, he really kept my self control. And
Mhm.
I just had to allow the process to happen and for me not to have this victim mentality that I had been so used to having, and
Mhm.
that things were happening to me and I had to prove my point. And um, how can you not see this? Why are you not feeling sorry for me? And so I really had to go to work on myself. I
Mhm.
had to decide to lay aside all of that and realize that God had brought me to this point for a reason. And I remember one of the prayers I said, and I just said, there were times that we were kind of still meeting and having dinner, and I just could feel things weren't changing. And
Mhm.
I literally said, I don't want anything in my life that God does not want for me. And I
Mhm.
always heard he doesn't like divorce and all this stuff, but I also don't think he likes his children in pain. And that's on
Right.
both sides. That was on, I was equally destructive. I
Yeah.
had to own my own side and my own part in that marriage.
Yeah.
Because it worked both ways. We were both equally. So that was the big thing. The things we're learning about myself. I had to
Yeah.
learn about myself. I couldn't focus on anyone else. I had to realize that the only person that I could change was me.
Right.
So I had to learn me. I had to learn why I'd continued to make decisions in my life that were continuing to hurt me and where that was coming from.
Yeah.
So that was the deep work, is figuring
Yes.
out me.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that truth right there. Because that is true, right? The only person you can change is you, right?
Mhm.
Right. The deep work, the victim mentality, those hard thoughts and those beliefs and those patterns, they all come from you. And I love that you recognize that. And I think that actually segues perfectly into my next question, which is all about the coping skills, right? So very early on, what coping skills did you develop, right? And how have they evolved over time?
Man, well, as I tell you about 2019, there were so many amazing gifts that God was putting in my path that I just didn't know that were happening.
Yeah.
And started me in recovery early of 2019. I actually hired a personal development coach. who is a very dear friend of mine and is still my coach today. And he saw me, and then of course my faith, just keeping my connection and anchored to the promises that are given to me. And but I started to, through my mindset coach, I started to put the two together. What he was teaching me about the way my brain worked and the science behind it was aligning with what I knew about scripture. And so it was just such an aha moment for me. And I dove deep into just I had this deep, deep hunger to just heal and get better, and realized all the lies that I had believed, and was just so determined to get through that. So coping things and things that I did was, again, it was community. A big one was community. Finding people that I could trust, and trusting that the people that were being taken away, and like that pruning, right? People that were shedding away were not the right people for me. And then I actually continued therapy. And so I had a plethora of stuff I was doing, and got a really huge benefit through EMDR.
Okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with EMDR.
I am. Yeah. I am.
Yes.
EMDR and ART and a lot of those different
Yeah.
modalities. Yeah. I'm very familiar with them.
So I did some of that, which was very, very helpful. But the one thing that was really huge for me was putting a name to trauma. I did not consider myself someone, and that is one of the things I'm really passionate about, is making recovery and trauma, bringing some awareness to those two. Because I think there's a misconception of what trauma is. And we think, because I know I thought trauma was something horrific, and I had good parents that were in my life and loved me. I didn't realize that the things that they had gone through in their childhood had created some things in their life that had caused me trauma as a young child.
Right.
And their divorce really had a big impact on me, when you don't have two parents emotionally available for you when you're a young child. And for me, it was in that second and third grade up through. So those primary years when these things are forming in our minds and stuff.
Right.
So bringing some awareness around trauma, but I had to be comfortable with putting a name to trauma and saying that I had trauma.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would love to ask you a very vulnerable question here. You talk about some of the deep work that you dive through and putting the name to the trauma. What were some of those deep rooted beliefs about yourself that you learned from a young age, and how did you name them?
Yeah. I wasn't good enough. I wasn't worthy. I got that from my dad leaving at a very young age. And I know now, when I look back, that I was starting to find manipulative behaviors at that young age, because I was trying so hard to get him to come home. And when he wasn't coming home, I created these stories in my mind that there was something about me,
Yeah.
that he didn't come back. So that was a recipe for disaster throughout my years going into adulthood, and getting into relationships that weren't serving me, because I'll just put the names to it, because I learned in recovery, I became a people pleaser. I sought validation from the world and from people,
Right.
to find my worth. So the biggest thing I had to do was find out my values and my worth, and where it came from. And it
Right.
didn't come from the world and from people.
Where did it come from?
It came from my Lord and Savior.
I love it. How did you, and
Yeah.
what was the process to make that shift? Right.
Um,
Because I know, and
well, I had to face the ugly lies. I had to go through recovery, and I had to, the first step in a 12-step recovery is denial. And I had to face the denial that I was having in my own life. And that was denying that I had a problem, denying that I had anything to do with anything that was happening to me, and take responsibility for my life.
Mhm.
And that being able to take radical accountability for your life is being able to admit. But I did that in the loving presence of a loving father with all the grace and mercy that he gives to me. So I had to anchor myself on the truth in his word, and that he didn't condemn me. There was nothing wrong with me.
Mhm.
There were just things I had created in my life unknowingly, unconsciously, that I thought were protecting me. But I
Right.
just feel like, Chase, I feel like we all come to this earth with a purpose in us, and it's
Mhm.
going through this process to find that purpose. And first, I think it starts with finding him first, and
Right.
then him allowing us into those dark spaces of our life and leading us through.
Yeah, the quote and thank you first and foremost,
Yeah.
Terry. That was so incredibly vulnerable, and I'm so appreciative that you were willing to step into that hard space with me. I know that every person listening to this right now, they're just in awe of not only your strength, but the lessons you've already taught. So thank you for that. And the quote that comes to mind is, "The cave that you fear to enter lies the treasures that
Mm.
that you seek." So, if God brings you to it, he'll bring you through it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Amen.
the long quote there, or not the long quote, but the popular quote. So,
Yes.
Terry, you have
My mindset coach has reminded me of that quote many times too.
you know, it's interesting. I'd love to hear your opinion on this. A lot of people who are just getting into the realm of mental health, they think there's a start point and an end point, right? I'm going to get here, I'm going to do all this hard work, and then be good. I'm never going to have to deal with it again, right? What's your thought about that?
That is absolutely an illusion. It is not the truth. We get better at dealing with it, but there is still, and there will be days that old self still wants to come out. But the great thing is that you recognize it.
Mhm.
I've been able to recognize it through the way I feel. So really being in tune to how you're feeling, and then just stopping for a moment and saying, okay, what am I thinking? What am I believing? And is it the truth? But then also being not judging yourself and being very compassionate with
Mhm.
you, um, that you're never going to be perfect,
Right.
and that things are going to come up.
Right.
So you just get better at dealing with it and managing it, and honestly, you have to learn to use tools and strategies in your life so that when it does come up, because life is going to life, it's going to keep life in for all of us.
I
So
love that. Yeah, life is going to keep on lifing. Oh, well, Terry, obviously you have found so much happiness and relief and reprieve from these negative beliefs and these values that you taught yourself from a young age. Looking back at everything you've gone through, what can you appreciate about the journey thus far?
gosh, I can appreciate, one of the things that I appreciate the most is the promises that are in the Bible, and we're always there. I'm like, why was I never reading this before? But just the promises that are true, and when you hold on to those and you really speak those into your life as an affirmation, over time you begin to believe it. And that was how I began to change some of those limiting beliefs, was
Hmm.
that it was in my head, but I had to work it into my heart. And that came through repetition and doing it over and over. And being hard on myself until I started to not be so hard on myself, and allowing grace. So it's an ongoing journey, but it's been one of the promises that it's in Genesis 50, and it says, what the enemy meant for evil, I will turn for good, and for the saving of many lives. And he absolutely did that in my life. He has restored every relationship in my life, with my, I went 13, close to 15 years of not talking to two of my sisters. Had a couple years where I didn't talk to my own father. My relationships with my children were strained, and he's just given me the time back and the joy and the peace and the health, and to just feel like I just turned 50 in March. My birthday's tomorrow.
Hey,
And
happy early birthday.
yeah, thank you. But I feel like I'm living the best decade of my life.
That is so amazing, Terry. Congratulations. It is beyond deserved. It is beyond deserved, the joy that you feel.
Well, and you say that, and I just want to say to your audience watching
Mhm.
is that receiving it is much harder, because we've got to believe that we're worthy of it, and we are.
That was powerful. And that was so true. Yeah, I remember one time I was going to do some service in my church. And as I was walking into the doors of one of our houses, our meeting houses, there was an old man, and I was like, I'm going to get the door for him, right? Because I'm younger and I can open the door. And he opens the door for me, and I said, let me get that for you. And he says, young man, do not deny me this opportunity to serve you, right? And I had to humble myself enough to receive that. And it's hard. It's hard to receive, like you're saying.
Hard.
It is, but it's cool. It's cool that you can see that you're worth receiving
Yes.
those things. Thank you. Thank you so much, Terry. You are such a force for good. Your passion shines through every word that comes out of your mouth. It is so apparent.
And I'm just filled with his light, Chase. I just say it's his glory, and I'm just the willing vessel.
That's it.
I just believe he goes around and he's looking for hearts that are willing. And
Mhm.
I was just willing.
You know, it's so it's so funny. I think growing up, so many people are taught that you can only receive God when you go to church, when you read your scriptures, and when you pray. But what I think they lack, the understanding that's lacked there, is that God works through people. God works
Yeah.
through nature. God works through so many things. And just the fact that you see that and you now allow God to work through you is so powerful.
Yeah.
It is so powerful. Thank you, Terry. So obviously you have so much advice, right? You've been sharing it this entire episode, and every single person is being blessed. I know people are being blessed. What advice do you have for those people just getting into the realm of mental health?
Well, what I would say first and foremost is that I see you, and that I want to speak in a way of what I needed at that time. And that was that nothing is wrong with you. You're not crazy. I had too many people telling me I was crazy, and you're not. Um, there's just a lack of understanding of ourselves. Um, and this season will end. This season will end, and it is a journey that takes courage. And if you're on here and seeking healing and journey through your own mental health, I celebrate you for your bravery to be able to take on this journey, because it's not for the faint at heart. Um, and then the other thing I would say is take one day at a time, and sometimes that's 1 minute at a time. And just grace is sufficient for you today. And don't worry about tomorrow. Just focus on sometimes the next step in front of you. And setbacks are going to be there. It's growth is not linear. It's not going to just be look this way. It's a jagged edge, and some days you go back. And so I would just say have abundant grace for yourself and celebrate your successes.
Amen. Wow, it's so powerful. It's as you as you talk about that stuff, some thoughts come to mind. For example, like Jonah and the whale, right? When he got swallowed up by that whale, he was not thinking about where he was going to be preaching in 6 months from there. He was taking, I'm sitting on the tongue of a whale. I gotta I just got to survive this, right? It's
Yeah.
just that moment to moment. And while you might not, you know, as you listeners, as you're listening, you might not be actually physically swallowed by a whale, but metaphorically, when that depression hits, when that anxiety hits, when Satan when he grasps his ugly claws in your hands, it's metaphorically, you're being swallowed by a whale.
Yeah.
Right? Those people who are struggling with suicide, who you're sitting there and you're thinking this is the only way out, that's a whale. That is a metaphorical whale. And if you can just make it the next minute, like what Terry encouraged you to do, that's great. That's a win. That's a victory.
And I just want to add something to that because
Mhm.
you brought up suicide. And I just want to say that, you know, we are so uniquely created. There's not another person created like us.
Right.
So I always love to just say, oh my gosh, I'm one in a trillion.
Right.
And there's a purpose in all of us. And so
Mhm.
you are so important. You are loved by your family, even when those lies that we tell ourselves make us feel and they actually feel like it is true, and every circumstance in front of you tells us otherwise. I promise there is going to be so much pain felt when your presence isn't here. So you matter. You matter.
Right. The joke I say is you're endangered. So
Yes, that's a good one.
you're on the
Love that
endangered
one.
species list. So you got to take good care of yourself. There's only one of
Right.
you.
You are the gift.
Yeah, you are the gift. Well, Terry, thank you so much for coming on and taking us through this beautiful journey of your life and your resiliency and your skills and your passion for our Heavenly Father. Truly, truly amazing. Now, I want to talk about the stuff that lights you up. So, Terry, tell us about your 501c3, your awakening the lioness spirit. Let's hear about it. I want to know.
So this is really funny because this is all part of my journey.
Mhm.
At the same time that my divorce, all of that was happening in 2019. So 2019 was the worst year, but it was one of the best years of my life. I started serving at a prison ministry through my church called God Behind Bars.
Mhm.
And we were going to the Denver Women's Correctional Facility. And it was in that place. I was just finding ways to pour myself into my church because I was going through a divorce. And so all of my identity was being questioned. Everything that I
Mhm.
put my identity in had been taken away. So I was trying to find a sense of belonging and was allowing God to move me through that. And I started serving there, and I walked into this prison, and these women I was meeting, they were me. They were me. My journey was not in prison, as I shared earlier in the segment here, that I did have that stint in my 20s where I spent one night, and that radically changed my life, and had me really go in and say, okay, are the choices you're making, are they serving you? And the funny thing about God is he will put you in a place sometimes and show you what he kept you from. And I felt like that's what he did. But he did show me that I had much more in common with these women. And that was that we were all mentally in bondage in our mind and stuck and on this hamster wheel of repeating same cycles and going back to relationships that didn't serve us and thinking we were beneath what God had said we were. And so I saw that in them, and I just remember praying in that prison and saying, God, how can we help these women? Because there was a deep cry, and a lot of it was housing. And that was in October of 2019, and by February of 2020, I knew that it was housing. He had spoken to my life that we are going to help them with affordable housing. And the cry is that when they leave prison, they go back to environments that harmed them,
Mhm.
that helped them set up these belief systems that created a lot of the experiences that they've had over their life.
Right.
And they're terrified to go back to some of these situations, or go back into doing things to support themselves that we're not serving them.
Mhm.
So one of our greatest needs is safety, and
Right.
safety for all of us is housing. And so we've
Right.
got to meet a basic need. And I don't know, nationally, I think housing is an issue. Housing crisis is an issue everywhere, but especially here in Colorado. The housing market is really hard and challenging and expensive. And with somebody coming out of prison that has a record, it's almost impossible for them to find good, stable, clean, safe housing. And so I'm just the vessel.
That's amazing, Terry. Thank you so much. And thank you for coming on. And so actually, quick question. You're Awakening the Lion Spirit, your housing nonprofit. Is that nationwide? Is that Colorado specific?
My vision is nationwide. There's some beautiful states that I've been able to travel to that I love and would love to serve women in those areas as well. Cause I think the sad thing is that, I'm celebrating men being able to get housing, but for some reason there is a lack of housing for women as a
Mhm.
whole. And I don't find that, I find that, I mean, I think just we see it biblically, were oppressed back then. And
Right.
so we're still seeing it today. And
Mhm.
so there's just a lack of support for them. But yeah, right now it's in Colorado.
Okay.
Um, and you can find us at Awaken Your Lioness Spirit on Facebook. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Instagram. And you can also email me at terry@awakenyourlioness.com. And our website is Awaken Your Lioness.
Okay.
And you can
Perfect.
hear more about us, more about my story, and ways you can help and serve. And so yeah, it's just been beautiful. And the one thing I wanted to add to that is one of the things I learned is that offering these women affordable housing only is a disservice, but also helping them with their mindset and really being able to move themselves forward. So just been blessed with the incredible honor through a local halfway house that starting next month, I will be taking in a mindset empowerment course to women at a halfway house, and I'll be starting with 12 women. So
That's amazing.
it's just very, very cool. And I just give all the glory to God that He can use my story and the nursing expertise that I have to be able to share what happens when we decide not to go back to those childhood experiences or those things that have caused us pain, and heal those areas, how they end up making us suffer in our physical health later on in life.
Terry, you're amazing. You're an amazing person doing amazing things. And thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you so
Oh,
much for everything that you've given us today. You are a gift. And I want you to send me over all of the, like, your Instagram, your Facebook tag, your LinkedIn tag, your
okay.
website, your email, and I would love to put those in our description here. So if people want to contact you, if people are thinking, you know what, I want to help get her into Utah, I want to help get her into California, whoever is listening to this,
Oh,
I
I'd
want
love
them,
that.
I want to be able to help you out that way as well. So we'll definitely do that. Um, Again, Terry, thank you so much for coming on the show. Anything else you want to leave the audience with?
I just want to put a big ask out there. If there's any of you that know anyone that is in these areas of what we're doing, whether it be in state and government uh, jobs that help with funding some of these big things, projects that we're doing, and reentry initiatives and things like that, or housing investors, please give them my information.
Hey, yeah, we definitely will. Terry, thank you so much. And for everyone listening to the show today, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to this entire episode. It means the world to me and to Terry that you'd be willing to hear her journey. If you haven't already, again, I invite you to share this with one or two people that I know you've thought of throughout this episode. If you want to come on the show yourself and be a part of the tribe of the people who get to share their journeys of resilience, just understand that no story is too big and no name is too small. If you do have a story, I want to share it all, you can contact me at chase@thewellnesscenter.life. One more time, chase@thewellnesscenter.life. And if you want to know more about what I do on a day-to-day basis, you can go to www.thewellnesscenter.life, where red light therapy recalibrates every cell in your body one session at a time. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you guys on the flip side. Peace out.
Thank you.